الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
The fifth shart. Very quickly, I wanted to finish the shurut because we have to go quickly. The fifth shart, shart al-khamis, istiqbalu al-qiblati. You have to face the qibla. Okay, this is another necessary condition of salah. And there are no exceptions except, now listen to the exception, إِلَّا فِي النَّافِلَةِ عَلَى الرَّاحِلَةِ لِلْمُسَافِرِ. Three conditions to make an exception. Number one, nafil salah. Number two, you are riding something. You do not get onto the ride. You are on the camel. Or, in our case, car, boat, whatever. You are on the mount and transportation. And you decide to pray nafil. So, you do not decide to pray nafil while you're facing the qibla or whatever. Then you get on. No, if you're already on the mount, or you're already driving the car, then you want to pray nafil. So, number one, it's nafil. Number two, you're already in the act of driving or on the camel. And number three, you are in safar. So, if you are not in safar, it's never allowed for nafil. So, facing the qibla is dropped if you are praying nafil salah in safar, riding an animal, or driving a car. And in this case, فَإِنَّهُ يُصَلِّي حَيْثُ كَانَ وَجْهُهُ. He may pray whichever way he is going. How do we know this? Because Ibn Umar says that the Prophet ﷺ would pray nafil on the back of his camel, and his face would be pointing in whichever direction the camel went. And he would simply lower his head on the camel for ruku' and sujood. And the hadith is muttafaq alayh. And in another hadith we learn the Prophet ﷺ would pray witr on his camel in safar. And this is one of the evidences of the other three madhahib that say witr is not wajib. Because if it were wajib, he wouldn't be praying it on a camel. Okay? So, if you are, and this is something that is completely halal for us, and it is in fact a sunnah for us to resurrect, which we don't do. When we are driving long distance between cities, it is following the sunnah. As we drive, we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we just say, Allahu Akbar, and we recite Fatiha. Now in ruku' and sujood, don't go down below the dashboard, or else you might never come back up. In ruku' and sujood, what do? Motion. Yumi'u bi ra'si is in the hadith. On the camel, he would just go a little bit down. Right? On the camel. Imagine when you're driving a car, it's completely halal. As you're driving a car, you just go down 5 degrees, that's your ruku'. 10 degrees, your sajjad, that's it. And this is completely halal. And you will be rewarded for the nafil. But it's only allowed for the nafil when you're musafir and you're in or on the mount. Okay? And that's nafil salah. And this is an excellent way to pass the time. An excellent way to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and follow the sunnah. Our Prophet would pray nafil just on the way. And this is halal for us to do. Okay? Never fard. Never fard. Never fard. وَالْعَاجِزُ عَنِ الْإِسْتِقْبَالِ. Another reason why the qibla will be dropped, the one who cannot face the qibla, لِخَوْفٍ أَوْ غَيْرِهِ, whether he's scared or for any other reason, فَيُصَلِّي كَيْفَمَا أَمْكَنَهُ, then he will pray however he can. So, scared means the salah of the jihad, the salah al-khawf. You have to face the enemy. You cannot turn your back to them and face the qibla. On the battlefield, salah will be prayed facing the enemy. If you have to. Quran says so. The Quran says so, right? On the battlefield, you will pray facing the enemy. You're forgiven. Qibla is forgiven. Or any other reason, for غيره, prisoner of war, tied up. Whatever the reason might be, if you are not able to face the qibla, then you pray however you are able to do so. وَمَا عَدَاهُمَا. Besides these two scenarios, the two scenarios, nafil for the musafir on the mount, or somebody who has a legitimate reason that he cannot face the qibla. And a legitimate reason, by the way, does not mean embarrassment. That's not a legitimate reason. Embarrassment, you're embarrassed, people are going to be looking at you. That's not a legitimate reason. Legitimate reason, you're going to lose your life if you turn your back to the enemy. That's legitimate reason. Okay? Or you're tied as a prisoner of war and you cannot face the Qibla. That's a legitimate reason. Other than this, لا تصح صلاته إلا مستقبل القبلة. The salah will not be accepted except when he faces the Qibla. فإن كان قريبا منها لزمته الصلاة إلى عينها. If he is close to the Kaaba, he has to pray facing the Kaaba directly. So if you're in visual distance, even 5 degrees, 3 degrees is not forgiven, because the Kaaba is right there. So you have to pray facing exactly the Kaaba. But if he is far, then he may pray in the general direction. And what does this mean? This means that the one who is far away from the Kaaba, Allah has forgiven the exact latitude and longitude. This is not something that لا يكلف نفسا إلا وسعها. You just pray, for example, in our times, suppose before this app comes out of the whatnot, and these days with app we have direct whatnot, suppose before this app, you have a general idea, Qibla is northeast. How will we know what is northeast? Between here to there will be northeast. And guess what? It's all good. All halal. And this is authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He told the people of Medina, ما بين المشرق والمغرب قبلة. Your Qibla is between the east and the west. What is the Qibla for the people of Medina? Guys? South. Due south is the Qibla for the people of Medina. Exact south, by the way, literally. Okay, what does the hadith say to the people of Medina? ما بين المغرب والمشرق قبلة. Anything between the east and the west is your Qibla, don't worry about it. Tawakkal ala Allah, Bismillah, no big deal. Why? Because again, before there were compasses, it's just a general direction. General direction. And therefore, if somebody has prayed salah, and then another person says, Akhi, it's not this way, it's that way. We say, we don't care, even if it is. This way and that way is the correct way. Now, this way and that way is not the correct way. Okay? But a good spectrum of even 90 degrees is completely forgiven. And by the way, no matter how exact you want to be, when you stand in salah from North America, I can guarantee you, even within the saf people are standing, by the time your trajectory reaches, you will be somewhere in East Turkmenistan or something, I don't know, you know. You're going to pass over completely. Do a straight line, it's not going to happen. So, and by the way, this is a realistic scenario where, for example, I went to a masjid, and they had purchased the masjid from a church or whatever, and the app had told them the Qibla was literally, I think, 8 or 9 degrees from the room structure. They didn't build the masjid. And so the whole, like the imam had to stand here, and there's 3 lines, 5 people. So awkward. I said, Ya ikhwa, you don't need to do this. It is allowed to pray within the room's things, because the Prophet explicitly said. But of course, people cannot understand this, right? How? The Qibla is clearly this way. I said, you know, even if you were to follow this line that you have derived from your iPhone and follow it straight, do you think you're going to hit smack in the middle of the Kaaba? Think about it, from here all the way to the Kaaba, and you're going to follow this line, you will hit straight the Kaaba? Of course not. The Sharia allows it. And I tried to convince them, but they didn't. But so the masjid was just really bizarrely oriented. And if they could just move 10 degrees or less, the whole masjid would have been completely in sync. But again, people's mentality is the issue, is that the iPhone or whatever says it, so khalas, it has to be this way. In any case, here's the point. If he is far away, then in the general direction. That is what is wajib. وَأَنْ خَفِيَتْ عَلَيْهِ الْقِبْلَةُ فِي الْحَضَرِ سَأَلَ وَاسْتَدَلَّ بِمَحَارِيبِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. If he does not know the Qibla and he is in a city, then he must ask, and he must look at the masajids and the mihrab. And if he makes a mistake in the city, he's at fault, and he has to repeat the salah. But if he is in safar, and he tries his best and makes a mistake, no repetition. Remember we said, if the fault is yours, the penalty will be yours. You cannot make a mistake surrounded by Muslims. Imagine the city is full of Muslims. Like we're not talking about America where there are no masajid except 3 or 4. Suppose the whole city is full of Muslims. And he makes a mistake. Clearly, he didn't do his homework. He could have asked anybody, gone to any masjid. He didn't, that's his fault. But suppose he's in the middle of the desert and he practices ijtihad and he makes a mistake and later on he discovers, then there is no repetition upon him because it's not his fault. And we finish up over here. وَإِنْ اخْتَلَفَ مُجْتَهِدَانِ If two people made ijtihad and they disagreed, لَمْ يَتْبَعْ أَحَدُهُمَا صَاحِبَهُ Each one will not follow the other. Because who knows who is the more correct? You don't. So each one will follow his own ijtihad. Even if it means they pray at 180-degree opposite one another. And their salah is sahih because they think they're facing the Kaaba. And إِنَّمَا الْأَمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ And the one who is blind and the one who is completely ignorant about directions follows whoever he trusts more. The meaning of blind and ignorant, sometimes the blind person is more knowledgeable than the seeing person. Wallahi, sometimes the blind person can sense direction better than the seeing person. The meaning of blind here is not literally blind. He's giving example. The one who has no ijtihad, this person chooses between these two men, the one that he trusts more in what? In directions for the Qibla. And directions for the Qibla have nothing to do with fiqh. If I were lost in the desert and there was a Boy Scout captain, right? I would tell you, follow the Boy Scout captain over me. Because I'm not trained to look at directions and whatnot. Okay? So the one who is better is not the one who has more Quran and Sunnah over here. It is the one who knows directions. That's the one you follow. That's what we're being taught. That in these sciences, Islamic sciences is not relevant. The one who knows which one to do. And then the 6th condition, the easiest one, we'll leave it to the end, inshallah, next week. But it's just basically the niyyah, that you have to have the niyyah. And inshallah, time is up. But very simple condition that you have to have the niyyah. These are the 6 conditions, preconditions of salah. And for those who came in late, tomorrow's lesson as well will be delayed till 8 o'clock. Tomorrow's lesson will be delayed till 8 o'clock. For those who are fasting, they can break their fast and then come. And then next Tuesday as well, we will start at 8 o'clock for the fiqh class. And then next Wednesday, which is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, we will not have a class. We will have a communal iftar, inshaAllah ta'ala. So all of you are invited, especially those that are fasting. But it is not a shart to fast to come to our iftar. There's no shurut. Come to the iftar, inshaAllah. So the 9th of Dhul Hijjah on Wednesday, we will have iftar here at MIC. And feel free to come and spread the word. And maybe we'll have an open Q&A or something, or just a brief talk about Eid or something, but we will not have a class next Wednesday. Very quickly, 1 or 2 questions for this topic, and then we move on. Very quickly, you had your question. Bismillah.
When you're traveling, when you pray Isha, one thing that you have, next morning you woke up, the sun came in a different direction. So you realize the direction is not 100%. It's okay.
Your brothers answer the question. He says, I looked at the app for Salat al-Isha, and then I followed the app. I woke up next morning and I realized by looking at the sun, the app must have been wrong. Repeat the salah or not? No. No, because you tried and you followed your best judgment. And our best judgment, we make taqleed of iPhone. Okay? But the brother is saying change to Android. Okay? But we made taqleed, we thought it was correct. We did our job. Okay? Yes. So the general rule is that it would not be allowed. However, in our times and given our circumstances, really I cannot find any other way out of this. Technically, it should not be allowed, but understanding that there's such paranoia in Western airlines, and that's why if you're able to take Eastern Airlines where you can stand up and pray, almost all Eastern airlines are not going to have any issue because they understand. But in these days that we live in Western airlines, it's definitely problematic to do so. Try your best, especially domestic flights. I mean, I never have a problem with domestic flights. Dhuhr and Asr, Maghrib, Isha, you can figure something out to do. Okay? The problem comes international flights. That's the problem that comes. And if you go Turkish Airways, for example, shouldn't be a problem. And the airports there have musallas as well. If you go any other Muslim airlines, if you go a non-Muslim airline, I understand in which case you will pray sitting down and with symbols of your thing. And we ask Allah to forgive. I mean, I don't like giving this fatwa, but I have to follow it myself, given this wasn't the case, by the way. For those of you who are old enough to remember, pre-9/11, it wasn't a problem. I prayed myself plenty of times in airplanes. You just, pre-9/11 was a different world. Wallah, it was a different world, You just tell the air hostess that, can I just pray in this corner? And you just pray. Nobody would have thought anything of it other than you're weird, yeah. But they wouldn't have thought anything else. And people thinking you're weird is not an excuse not to pray. But these days they'll have 2 military planes accompanying us if we do that, So that's the problem. Inshallah, I don't want to...
Sitting down if you're praying in the plane, and you know for sure your direction is not right.
It's not okay, but what's the alternative? So you will try your best to at least face the Qibla, turn your face. Then the good news is when you're going to the Middle East, you're pretty much facing Mecca. Okay? The problem is on the way back. On the way back, and then your back is to the Kaaba. Anyway, inshallah, we have to finish because we're getting late. So inshallah, we'll continue next week, inshallah ta'ala. So.
فيا ذلي ويا خجلي إذا ما قال لي ربي أما استحييته تعصيني ولا تخشى من العتب وتخفي الذنب عن خلقي وتأبى في الهوى قربي فتب مما جنيت عسى تعود إلى رضا الرب تعود إلى رضا الرب